Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Dowling, and I'm the chair of the Housing Domain Committee at the Senior Center. We've been in business for about a year and a half, working to get information out to people about all the different aspects of housing in Duxbury. And one of the big areas has been the interest in accessory dwelling units. And this is probably maybe our third program this fall that has explained some of the different facets of accessory dwelling units. I'm very pleased that Alexis Levitt is here with us today because my husband and I had the pleasure of seeing her give a presentation. I almost said performance. It was interpretive dance. And so she gave a presentation last spring, and we heard her. And her knowledge about all things to do with estate planning and veterans benefits and adults with special needs. She just has a wealth of information about a variety of topics. And it was her empathy also with the audience that really impressed us as well. So when this is over today, I would really encourage you to go on her website because she has a very active blog with very up-to-date information on topics that are of interest to a lot of people, like the big, beautiful bill and its impact on Medicaid and on Social Security benefits. So a lot to learn, and it's very current, and I would really encourage you to look into that. So, Alexis Levitt.
Thank you very much. I'm an elder law attorney in Norwell, and as she said, elder law also encompasses special needs planning. And so what you saw, you're on my newsletter list, and when Massachusetts passed this new ADU law, I got very excited and I wrote something, and she said, come talk about it. So here we are. So ADUs are here. I am really, really excited. I'm going to learn how to use this clicker. I did it. Okay. There are some sign-up sheets going around, and those are to get you onto our newsletter list. So if you could fill those out as we're talking, you'll eventually get to receive our email newsletter with announcements for things like this. So, okay, with that, what are ADUs? Why are we here? So, and I understand you've had a couple other presentations on ADUs, so I think most of you are up to speed, but we're just going to start at the beginning. We're talking about tiny houses, in-law suites, a cottage that you build on your backyard. These are some diagrams. These are real-life pictures. So this might be, a garage or like a carriage house that someone converted in their yard. Stop. This looks like somebody maybe converted a whole basement or, downstairs level into a living area. This looks like somebody built an apartment above a garage. So that's what we're talking about, the in-law suites, the additions, the cottage, the tiny house in your backyard. So accessory dwelling units, ADUs. So why is this so exciting? So Massachusetts, so we've had ADUs for a little bit, sort of hodgepodge around the state, but we have a new law that makes it a lot easier to build them, i.e. it makes it harder for towns to stop us from building them. So, and what's so exciting is that this is going to allow more elders and disabled adults to stay at home rather than having to move out and go to some sort of a building. And it's also going to make it much more financially feasible for young people to stay in Massachusetts. We have an absolute brain drain, an exodus of all of our young people because of our housing costs. So very, very exciting. So please be nice to me. This new law is new territory for everybody. This is the first time I'm talking about it in public. These are all my thoughts, which will probably evolve as the year goes on and as more and more people build ADUs and we learn more by doing. So thank you. Vocabulary, As I'm going through today, I'm just going to keep saying parent and kid just because that's easier. But to build an ADU and to live with somebody, it doesn't have to be a parent and child. It could be siblings. For example, if you are going to take care of a disabled sibling. It could be a niece, a nephew. You don't even have to be related. It could be a godchild, your best friend's kid. It could be a graduate student who you make a deal with to live here in exchange for helping with the house. So that's the other really great thing about this new law, is you don't have to be related. So this, I think, these are the things I think your prior speaker talked about. When you're just thinking about remodeling or building, these are kind of the things that come to mind. So first and foremost, do you have the space? Is there a part of your house that you could convert? Is there a spot where you could put an addition? Do you have space in your yard to build a tiny house? Septic. A lot of South Shore is on septic, and a tank can only handle so much. So you have to talk to your engineer and figure out if building an ADU is even going to work from the septic point of view. Are you in a historic district? That's going to put some limitations on. Building codes. You still have to comply with all the fire codes and the electric codes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the other big limitation is the size. 900 square feet at the most. So it's up to 1/2 of the floor size of the main house. But it does not matter how big that house is, you're stopping at 900 square feet when you build the ADU. So these are the sort of what I call the construction remodeling things to think about. So that's the fun part. These are the things I worry about. So here we go, this is the legal part of the presentation. So I'm gonna outline them and then we're gonna go into depth, okay? Oh, yes, thank you. You all have the slides and we print them out with lines so that you can take notes. So here are the things that I worry about. Making sure that everyone continues to get along. Cohabitating is not easy. When the house is someday sold, how do you minimize capital gains? Evening out inheritances to your other kids who are not part of the whole housing arrangement. I worry about protecting the house if the parent needs nursing home eventually. I worry about protecting the child's ability to stay in the house after the parent dies. And I worry about protecting the parent's right to stay in the home if the kids get divorced. So, really fun things to think about. The bottom line, I'm going to go into each of those, but your takeaway, if you forget everything else we talked about today, your takeaway is that the approach you take to address all of these issues is going to be different for each family. There is no one tool that fits everybody, absolutely not at all. And when you're building an ADU, you're going to have your engineer, you're going to have your architect, your contractor, the building inspector. You have to have an elder law attorney on your team. So that's the background. So now we can talk about each of the things in depth. Am I standing in your way? Can you guys see okay, all right. So making sure everyone continues to get along. This is, basic college roommate stuff. Agreeing on making contracts, having the conversations, making contracts with each other, on agreeing on quiet hours, who's going to shovel the snow, who's going to schlep in the groceries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I also think about making sure that parents can have visits with their other children alone if they want to, because we all have different relationships with different people, and we relate maybe one way when we're with the person alone and a different way when we're in a group. So if the parent wants, they should absolutely be guaranteed time alone with their other kids, the kids who don't live there. Also under the headline of making sure everyone continues to get along, as the parent needs more hands-on care, you can create a care contract to pay a child, the one you're living with, or your other kid, or your niece, your nephew, your grandchild, whoever, to provide some of that hands-on care, the grocery shopping, the cooking, etc. And sometimes making a contract and paying somebody can sometimes take some of the ick out of relationships and remove resentment by the other kids. Sometimes. Any quick questions on making sure people get along? Okay. Now we get into the money. If parents are paying to add on to a kid's house, so your children have a big house, the parent wants to build an in-law apartment or build out the basement or pay for the carriage house to be reconstructed, redesigned. So kid's house, parents are paying to add on to the kid's house. So let's say you're putting $200,000 into your kid's house. It could be 50, 100, 200, I'm just making up 200. So what happens if your relationship kind of goes south after a while? How do we make sure that a parent can stay in that house? You've plunked down a lot of money. How do we make sure that your kid can't just send you off? So some things, some tools I might use are a life estate deed, a joint ownership deed, maybe an occupancy agreement. So I think my point here is this is a thing we need to think about, and there are tools in the toolbox to address it. I also think about, what if the house, the kid's house that the parent built onto, if it has to be sold while everybody, while the parent's still living? What if the kids get divorced or lose a job? The house has to be sold. If you put in, I'm just making up, $200,000, you need to get that back if the house is sold. So, because presumably you're going to need that to go to wherever you're going next. So some ways I might ensure that, or a life estate deed, a joint ownership deed. What else? Oh, right. If the parents, if it's your kid's house and you've put in a nice chunk of money to add on to the kid's house, and everybody needs to sell at some point while you're still living, there's capital gains exemptions, capital gains taxes when we sell a house, and there's capital gains exemptions that save us a lot of capital gains tax. So how do you work that into the equation? So I might give the parent a life estate deed, I might give you a joint ownership deed. Again, it's going to be very particular to each family. And again, the overall point is that these are the things I think about, and we have different tools to address each of them. So then another thing, let's say kid's house, parent has paid to add on to the kid's house. What happens if the parent eventually needs nursing home? So this is going to be somewhat familiar territory, I imagine, that if you ever need a nursing home, you can obviously private pay. But if you are afraid that you're going to run out of money, or your spouse is going to run out of money, or you have a special needs child you need to save your money for, you can have Medicaid, which in Massachusetts we call Mass Health, pay for nursing home. But there's a lot of rules around that as to what you've done with your money in the last few years. So if parents are paying to add on to a child's house, I worry about, what if the parent's going to need nursing home later? What if they're going to want Mass Health to pay for that nursing home? How do we protect the kid's house from that cost, from that risk? So maybe a life estate deed, a joint ownership, I might do a caregiver child deed. So different tools in the toolbox. Another thing I think about. So kids own the house, parent has paid to add on to the house. I've given the parent some sort of ownership interest for all the reasons we just went through. But how do I make sure that the kid is going to own the whole house when the parent dies? Because it started out as the kid's house. What that kid does not want, what would really be difficult, is now that parent has died, all of a sudden the kid's house is also owned by her other siblings, right? Through the parent's death. We don't want that, presumably. So how do we make sure the kid ends up with the whole ownership when the parent dies? I might do a life estate deed, a joint ownership deed, a caregiver-child deed. Again, different tools to address a really important question. Then this one is really important. The kid has a house. You as the parent have given a nice chunk of change to build a lovely apartment on that house. When the parent dies, that kid has a much improved house, a house with a lovely apartment. So when they go to sell that house, it's worth a lot more than when they started, before you built the apartment. So you've given that child this gift, essentially, really increasing the value of their home. How do you even things out among your other kids? So that's something we'll always talk about. And we'll set up the rest of your estate plan, and we'll do some math and make sure that whatever other monies you have when you die, even out as best we can. Okay, do you guys want to talk about all these worry factors? And then we'll talk about when it's the other way around. So parents, kid owns the house, parents are paying to add on. Go ahead.
What happens if there's an existing mortgage on the house?
And the parent is then adding on or taking an ownership interest? The adding on, I don't think the bank would care. They'd actually be happy about that because now the house has more value. For parent to take an ownership interest, I have no idea. I would have to work with a real estate attorney if that was the case and ask them. We'd have to figure that out. And maybe yeah, I don't know. I don't know. See, all these things to think about with this new law. Yes.
Can you explain briefly what a life estate is?
Okay. Yes, sorry. A life estate deed is this very weird, fuzzy concept that really doesn't make a lot of sense. We brought it over from England on the Mayflower, okay? Here's what it is. Let me think. What are we doing? If parents are paying to add on the child, okay, so, yeah, what is a life estate deed? A life estate deed. So, if it's the kid's house, parents are paying to add on to it. I might, right, there's different tools, but I might give the parent a life estate deed in the house. So what that means is the kid owns the house and the parent owns a life estate, which means for the rest of my life, I can live here. And we'll usually say, like, if the in-law apartment takes up like 15% of the house, square footage, we'll say, the life estate deed is for 15% of the whole. So a life estate deed for the parent means it's a deed. You file it at the registry of deeds. So let's say the parent has a life estate in the 15% of the home. The kid cannot kick her out. Can't. Absolutely cannot, because it's a deed. It is a life estate deed. You cannot be kicked out if you own a life estate. And it means when you die, the life estate extinguishes at midnight. Just goes away. Goes away. And the kid now owns the whole house again. Yes.
So is that a part of when people throw the term deed restriction around? Same thing, different thing?
Totally different. Okay. Totally different.
Right.
It's not a I guess it sort of is, but no, it's just this old English concept that says I have the right to live here. No one can kick me out, and when I die, it just goes away. What else about if the kid owns the house and the parents are paying to build something there? Yes?
It's probably just for each family to figure out themselves. But if a younger person is allowing you to add on to their house, conceivably, they're doing more than just being a tenant landlord. Conceivably, they're giving more care than the other siblings.
Right.
I guess the family just figures out, is that enough to say that everyone's not owed an equal share of the house with the add-on?
Right. Yeah, the kid who you're living with is earning every penny,
Yes.
assuming you live for a while.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, some families, yes. Yes, it's whatever the family wants. For some families, that's exactly how it breaks down. And honestly, for some people, by the time they die, there's not a lot of cash left to be split among the others. And that's why also that idea of a care contract. So let's say you're living with your daughter, but your son is doing a lot of things for you. You know, maybe set up a care contract for him, because everyone knows by the time you die, you know, if you look at your finances and you can see this happening, that there's not going to be a lot left. So this is my opportunity. This is how I'm going to get something to him. And kind of taking away that resentment when you die. Oh, my sister got a $200,000 addition and I got nothing, right? So yes, for every family, it's going to be different. So these are all just sort of food for thought, everything we're kicking around. Yes?
You have a separate building being built on their property.
Mm-hmm.
You paid for it. For whatever reason, you have to go into assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is you can't sell that piece of property. It now is owned by the child.
It depends how you set it up.
Okay? Because I don't know how would you sell.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't own it all by yourself, because that would be a subdivision and that's a whole other thing. But yeah, there'd be some sort of joint ownership situation, either joint ownership or life estate.
But say that person needs the money now to afford assisted living.
Right.
How does he get the money out of that house if he can't sell it?
Yeah. Maybe the kids rent it out and use the money to pay for assisted living. You could do that.
But that is true. You can't sell that house because it's not your property.
Yeah, so if your kids own the main house, and let's say you take a barn and convert it, you're correct. That barn, like you don't own the barn and the little bit of land that it's on. You don't. All these things I'm proposing to protect the parent are going to have some sort of ownership structure, but it's not sole.
So I would say that would help you also in Medicaid because you don't own it. That
Yeah.
Medicaid can't come after that.
Correct. Pros and cons. Pros and cons. Not so great if you need the cash for assisted living. Fabulous if you need Medicaid to pay for nursing home. Yeah.
How is that different from joint ownership?
How is what different? A life estate? Not in any, I'm trying to think in this scenario. That would really be getting into the weeds to answer that question. For now, I think the takeaway is that these are the worry points, and these are some of the different tools to address those worry points. Yes.
From the definition that you gave on life estate and what I understand it, I had a father that had a life estate. And joint ownership, you own part of that. If say if you're on the deed as owning actually part of that, and that how that property gets sold, that's part of your ownership, thus your estate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ignoring all the complications of when it gets sold or whatever, but.
So it depends on how you set it up. It depends on how you set it up. So while you're living, you're always going to have a percentage. If the house is sold while you're living, whether you've got a life estate or a joint, there's joint with survivorship and there's joint tenants in common. See, okay, so weeds. We're going to skip the weeds. Okay, yes.
I don't know if you touched on this, but if you have an ADU that the person's moved out is it able to be rented?
So my understanding is that if your town allows rentals, you can rent it. In general. Your town, what this new law says is that if your town, let's say, allows rentals in general, the town cannot say no renting ADUs. So if your town allows renting in general, then you can rent your ADU.
What happens if I have a big house and a lot of land, and I put an ADU, but I want to live in the ADU and rent out the big house?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's saying, I've got a giant house that I don't really want anymore. I want to live in the carriage house. Yes, you move into the carriage house and someone else lives in the big house. Absolutely. Yes, in the back. You, yeah, Gray.
So, in any case, but especially if you have a separate unit in the backyard, what about like an agreement to like share? How do you handle property taxes and insurance costs, or you have to have an agreement?
I think, yeah, no, I think you're getting back. So she's asking, okay, we've got a main house, we've got a carriage house, like how do we share taxes and utilities and...
Well, insurance is on property that you live in, so you have two separate living units on one piece of property owned by one person.
Right, homeowners insurance, if you've got a big building and a little building. So I think that comes back to what I'm calling like the college roommate agreement, just sitting down and making an agreement among yourselves. There's no rules that answer your question. So it's really about what works for you and the person that you're living with. Yes.
Going back to that previous example where you've got a big piece of land and you want to build a separate unit to live in and then rent out the bigger house, are you restricted on 900 square feet?
If you're using the ADU route.
Yeah, but what, all right, you have to use the ADU route?
No, you could go through a very long town board process to subdivide and build, you know, like a condo type of situation.
You have to subdivide? You couldn't like just build a giant garage with you know?
I think that's getting beyond what I know about, because now you're getting into real estate and land use law and zoning law, and I don't know anything about those things. But people at town hall, your town planner could answer some questions on that. Who hasn't any? Okay.
It's just quick. You mentioned barn or carriage house. They also have to be 900 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm saying barn. It would be a small barn. Yes. Go ahead, Gray. Yeah.
So, if you're not paying outright to build an ADU in your backyard, so you're doing some kind of a loan, like a mortgage and a loan back to your kids? Because you have to be the one owning the property, the whole property.
Well, right now, so we're going to talk about when the parents own the house. So what we've been talking about are when the kids own the house. Well, yeah, I guess I let myself get off track a little bit. But if the kids own the house and you're giving money to build something, is that what you're talking about, or the opposite?
The situation I'm thinking about is that you own the house and you're building it in the backyard for your kids, but they don't have the money to pay for it, so you're giving them a loan and they're paying you back. But
yeah, you just memorialize everything and we work it into your estate plan to make sure that gets paid back eventually so your other kids don't get shorted. Yeah. All right.
You could take a home equity loan and have the child pay for the home equity loan.
Yeah. Yes. All right, we're going to talk about if it's the parents' house in a minute. Anything else about the kids' house?
Say you sold your house to the kids and you have 4 acres of land and you can't subdivide it. Is there a way you can build an ADU and make it a condominium?
So when I say condo, that's like a land use term. A real estate term. So an ADU is an ADU. The thing when you build it, might look the same, but the legal pathway you took to get there, one pathway is an ADU, one pathway is subdivisions and condos. Which I know is not totally answering your question, but there's separate pathways to get to building a thing that looks the same either way. The tiny house looks like a tiny house, but you might go to the ADU way to get there, you might go the subdivision condo way to get there. But again, I don't know anything about subdivisions and condos, and that's a town planner question. Yes?
Back to your expertise in this gentleman's question, if he builds a house on someone's property, right, an ADU, and then he realizes in 2 years he needs the money,
Yeah.
and it's not under the 5-year look back, that really doesn't help, right?
I know. So that's why, okay, so here's what he's talking about. And just to make sure we're not mushing things together, if he needs the money for assisted living, that is a private pay situation. He needs cash to pay for assisted living. Nursing home, the government will pay for. If you have no money, and if you have not given away all your money in the last 5 years. So what he was asking is, well, what if I need the cash to go to assisted living because that's private pay? Then we're kind of stuck. And again, maybe the kids will rent it out to make the cash appear every month. The nursing home, we do have a 5-year look back, except that's why we do some ownership, dancing around with ownership with different types of deeds. But the bottom line is, if you come to see me, I'm going to look at all of your finances. I'm going to look at your health, and we're going to figure out what setup, financial, legal setup works for you, which might not work for this person or might not work for this person. I might say to you, you don't have enough money to hand over to your kid to build an ADU because I see you going to assisted living very soon and you're going to need that money, right? So that's part of the analysis, is maybe this is not a good idea for you. So the answer is going to be different for everybody after looking really closely at finances, family dynamics, and your medical, our best guess at your medical trajectory. All right, let's talk about, okay, so parents, this is what some of you are asking about. So you guys, the parent owns a house, the kids want to move in. So the kids are going to bring the money to build the ADU. And maybe they're going to live in the little apartment, or maybe you're going to flip. It's your house, but you're going to live in the in-law, and they're going to live in the big house, okay? Maybe. But in any event, you own the house, the kids are paying to add on an ADU. So what are the things I worry about? How do we protect their right, the kids' right, to stay in this house, your house, if you need nursing home, because they've made an investment, and now it's their home, right? Their kids are going to school, they've figured out their commute to work from that house. This is their home now. So how do we protect their right to stay in your house if they've put money in to build an ADU? We might do a joint ownership deed, I might do a caregiver child deed. So again, very specific to each family situation. But that is a thing to think about ahead of time. How to protect the kid's right to remain in the home when the parent dies. It was the big house was yours. The kid put some money in to build the in-law apartment. And again, they've been there so many years. This is really their home. How do they stay there after you die? We might do a joint ownership. We might do some sort of trust. So, thing to think about, different tools to address it. What else? If the kid, this is similar to what we talked about. So the kid, you own the big house, they've paid some money to build an ADU, you die, they inherit the whole thing. How are the other kids going to feel about that? So how do we equalize, as best we can, the inheritance to everybody else after you die? So I get this question a lot, like, why not just gift the house to the kid while I'm living? Isn't that the easiest thing to do? So, I mean, sort of. But then you lose a step up in basis when you die. Also, this is your house, and if you deed it to your kid, you've lost control of your principal asset. And then nursing home problems with the whole 5-year look back. So, again, bottom line, the biggest thing to take away from today, the approach you take to address each of these issues is very different for everybody's scenario. No one tool works for everybody, and you must have an elder law attorney on your team when you're planning out an ADU. Any questions? Now we can talk about when the kids are paying to build onto the parents' house. Or just general questions, because that's the end of my slides. Yes?
With Mass Health eligibility, as I recall, there's an upper limit on to make the house exempt if you're living in it, an upper equity amount limit. So
Yes.
This would bump up your value of your property, adding on another unit.
Yeah. Okay. So what she's asking about is if you do eventually need, if the parent owns the big house and the kid is adding on the ADU, the parent now has a house that is worth more. And if the parent needs a nursing home at some point, and if there's reason to apply for Mass Health to pay that nursing home bill, they do have an equity limit on the house. I forget, it's $1 million something now. Low, million plus a little bit something. But if I've given your kid a joint ownership or a life estate, you don't own the whole thing. You own a percentage, and maybe the home equity on that percentage is below the Mass Health number, for example.
But if you don't give anybody any other interest, you own the whole thing.
Yes. There are, what sometimes we do to bring that equity number down is take out a home equity line. But also if you have, well, yeah, I won't go there. Okay, so yes, and what you need to remember about Mass Health, Medicaid, which pays for nursing home, it started in the 60s as a federal poverty health insurance program. So that's why there's all these numbers attached to it. It was designed to catch the people who are living at the poverty line. So that's why there's a home equity limit on your house. That's why you can't give your money away. So you just need to keep that in mind to kind of understand where they're coming from, where these numbers are coming from. Yes?
If you already have an in-law, which might be considered an ADU, over the garage, and it's 600 square feet, we should be allowed to build another in the backyard, 300 feet. It's a total of 900.
I have no idea. The question was, if you've already got a 600 square foot little apartment in your house, can you now build another one that's 300 square feet to add up to 900? I have no idea. And, you know, and I don't think the law addresses that question, so it might kind of be up to the personalities on your town board, is my guess.
You can have more than one ADU on your property, and each can be 900 square feet as long as you have enough septic and enough land space.
That's good to know, thank you. And where would you find that?
I have no idea. I haven't read that, but.
I don't know what
I'm not
that's
sure about that.
Everything I've read is just one
Yeah.
ADU per
Yeah.
property.
As long as you have, I mean, I went to the building one last week,
Yeah, I did too.
and I'm an agent, and what I've been told is that you can have, as long as the septic allows for it,
Sure, I love that.
and you have enough land, you can have more than one per property.
Yeah, I think it's an untested area. I'm an attorney, and I've dealt with some of this stuff, but I don't know anything yet.
Yeah, I would double check, but that's.
Yes.
And remember, all this is new, right? So even your town boards are sort of muddling their way through the first couple applications.
You can get a bigger ADU, because I've been approved for one, it fell through, but it is It depends on the town. So the town that we were gonna do it allowed us to go to 1,200 square.
That is true. Okay, you're raising a good point.
And it's a percentage of the house that's on the property, you can do half the square footage. If they have 2,400 square feet, then you can build a 12.
In that particular town. Yeah, so that's a good point, is Massachusetts, this law is trying to stop towns from basically squeezing ADUs out. But you happen to have a town that is very pro-ADU, so you're allowed to be more generous than the state law. You're not allowed to be more restrictive than the state law. That is really good to know that some towns are very into this. That is fantastic. Yes.
A couple things about I think there's also a requirement that the ADU has to have a separate entrance.
Yes, yeah, the ADU has to have a separate entrance. It has to look and feel like your own living space.
An apartment inside the house unless it has a separate entrance.
Right, separate entrance, yes.
And another thing that some towns will have restrictions on is how much parking, on-street parking you're going to have.
Yeah, there are requirements about parking, which around here is not a problem. You know, maybe in Hull where you have so little space in front of your house, or Situate. Yeah, so, but yes, there are parking requirements. I don't remember what they are.
So options under, if your town has in-law apartments as a separate category?
I have no idea.
I mean, some towns have that already.
Yeah, so she's asking about some towns, ADUs are not a brand new concept. Some kind of hodgepodge, different towns have been introducing ADU zoning over the last several years. So I think the heart of your question is, if my town already had an ADU zoning code, how does this new one fit in? And I don't know the answer. Well, I kind of know the answer, is that they have to bring their ADU codes at least up to the state standard, but they can exceed. But if their current ADU standard is more restrictive than the state law, they have to bring their bylaws up.
And one other thing around here to mention is that there's a builder in Carver who's been building these. It's called Buildex.
Buildex, he was here.
He's having open houses at the ones he's building, so you can go look at them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Go to open houses. Look, touch, see, smell, really get a sense of what it would feel like to have one of these on your property. And in the back.
I had a client that they did the in-law several years ago, and the deed went into the child's name only. The deed remained in the child's name.
It was the parents' house?
No, it was the child's house.
The kid's house, okay.
The deed was in the child's name, and the parents paid for an attached in-law to be put on. Happened to be 900 square feet too. And they had set it up with an irrevocable trust and a promissory note.
Yeah.
So, so when the child sold the home, the irrevocable trust got paid the amount of money the parents put in.
Yes.
From the proceeds from the sale of the house, and then that got distributed to the other siblings. Will get distributed to the other siblings when the siblings are in agreement with this, because that child was really caring for the parents. So,
right.
And so they weren't looking for increased money over value. They just wanted to split the investment.
The original investment.
So that's how they did that.
That's how they did that. So Anne-Marie's talking about the question of, God, there's actually a lot of reasons, a lot of factors that went into the decision to do. So it was the kids had the big house, parents built something on, that amount of money was determined to be some sort of percentage. And that was let's say it was 20% of the house. So they put in an irrevocable trust for 20% of the value of the house in some way. And then, so when the kid eventually sells this house, parent dies, when the kid eventually sells this house, that irrevocable trust, it's in black and white. There's no wiggle room. The other children will get whatever percentages that trust says to give to them. The problem is that while that kid, as long as that kid is living in the house, they don't own the whole thing. So if they want to go get a mortgage, a home equity line, there's this other owner, the irrevocable trust, on their house. So pros and cons to absolutely every tool in the toolbox. Yes. What else?
Is there any difference in just giving the money, so as a gift? So say instead of the 200 where you're having a joint ownership in all of these different, or you're just going to give them the $200 and then you're going to live out of goodwill?
So your kids have the big house, you as the parent just give them $200,000 to hire the architect and do the building, and you move in. So I think that's what people usually do. And then sometimes everything goes exactly the way it should, and everybody dies in the right order, and nobody gets divorced, and no one goes to a nursing home, et cetera, et cetera. Or we think about all these things ahead of time that I've been laying out today, and we put a plan in place that can address, well, what if they get divorced? What if we die in the wrong order? What if someone goes to a nursing home? What if somebody needs the cash for assisted living? Again, pros and cons to every approach.
You need something, you need to walk through those scenarios, is what you're saying.
The prudent thing to do is to walk through these scenarios. Yes.
Is there a finite number of those issues you need to take into consideration?
No, you could spin your wheels and make yourself as crazy as you want. Though the things that I highlighted are the things that I think about right now, but maybe in a year with more experience, you know, there'll be more things that I add to my worry list.
Good.
What else? Has anybody built an ADU or moved in with their kids yet? Very good.
We built an ADU in the backyard of our daughter.
Good.
She's going to be our caregiver, and our other two kids that have at it.
Correct. Yes. 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 Did you? Yeah.
Well, in that scenario, if they have 3 kids, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And the other, the other 2 really don't want to take care of mom and dad.
They don't want it.
So, I mean, this is getting too personal maybe, but not with you, but I was wondering about this with, I know, hold on, if the one child out of the, say, 3 or 4 is the only one that really will take care of the parent, and they put $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 into their house.
To the kid's house.
Well, that's too bad for the other kids, right? Because no one else wanted to deal with it.
Yeah, so again, yeah, what he's saying, he's echoing exactly what she just said. If there's only one kid who wants the job, they're gonna earn every penny of that in-law apartment.
What if they pass tomorrow, got hit by a truck, let's just say, instead of sickness?
Yeah, if you die too soon, they kind of got a free, yeah. Yes, but again, so this is where it comes back to the answer for every family is different. If this is the way your family feels and your other kids are on board, then that's what we'll do. For other families, the parent's gonna say, there's gonna be a lot of trouble after I die if we do it this way. And we're gonna do it a different way. Yes.
Can I retract what I said about unlimited numbers? I just went on the Duxbury site, and it seems like you could have one protected ADU per lot, but they talk about unprotected ADUs, and I'm not sure what that is.
Is that a guest house, perhaps?
I don't know what an unprotected, if it's like a.
We were told you can only have one.
Okay, that's what it just, one protected per land. But it does talk about building on, so I talked to the town about that.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? I asked if anybody's doing, oh, who else is exploring this? Probably a lot of you if you're here. Okay, good. Good. I love it. I think it's a fantastic idea for what I said at the very beginning. It means parents and disabled adults can stay at home instead of having, whether that's your house or the kid's house, but it's still a home as opposed to moving somewhere. And we do have a lot of great choices on the South Shore for like independent senior communities. They are wonderful, but most people would say my first choice is to stay at home. So I love that this opens that up. And then what I said also about young people can't afford to stay here. So this is going to open up opportunities for kids to not have to leave Massachusetts. Yes?
One thing I just read the other day is that if you're building the ADU for someone who's over 60 or who's a disabled adult, there's a program, a state program that you can apply for no interest financing.
Oh.
I think it's that home modification program.
Okay.
$50,000. Yeah, you can go on the government website.
So apparently there's a state loan, zero interest loan program to help you build an ADU for someone 60 plus or a disabled adult. Okay, good.
Zero interest, zero payment, so it's an interest. State website.
Okay. Awesome. Zero interest loan, but also no monthly payment. So it's just a lien against the house for whenever it gets sold in the future.
At that base rate? At that base rate?
Bill Dex talked about it
last week.
The land.
up to 50,000. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Oh, maybe. I bet that was part of this. Yeah. This was a huge housing bill, so I bet that was part of the housing bill.
Just random things I've read lately. I guess the state said between January and June of this year, they had 844 applications.
Good.
The state, and most were coming from Plymouth.
From Plymouth? Okay, apparently Plymouth is a hotbed for starting out of the gate for building ADUs. Good. That's great.
So in other words, I think some have larger lots.
Yeah, large lots. We have an older population. Great. Wonderful. We're leading the charge. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.